We have made it to Friday, 14th of February. Is this some kind of holiday? Is this Valentine's Day? I don't even know. Cheers. I really appreciate all the feedback from my video yesterday. Thank you. I wanted to know more specifically, even though I kind of assumed what I hear from all you folks. It's kind of what I assumed. But it's nice to hear, get the feedback. I've realized from an early age that I'm a people person, that I'm able to get along with practically anyone, that I have a certain amount of charisma, which partially means that from an early age, I inherently understood that I was okay. In spite of abuse that I suffered as a kid and neglect, I inherently knew that I was fine and that there was no one better than me in the world, And so in that sense that I relate to a lot of people. And I hear some people saying that you feel like you can relate to me. Other folks are saying that they like my vibe. Cool, And for those who had to let me know that, they don't, they watch me, but they don't like half of what I show musically, that's not surprising. That's been my experience all my life, is that I'm an outsider. I'm the odd man out. I was the kid who, on the playground, saw what everyone was rushing to do and wanting to be included. And I can remember trying to do that and how disappointing it was, and the judgment and the cruelty of other kids. And I just said, this ain't for me. I can see better than this, When I finally figured out that one of the biggest bullies to me as a child, who very interestingly, I found out much later, he was actually attracted to me. I wasn't, but that was what it was about. Come to, and through my work and my studies, besides just working in the mental health industry, I had to do continuing education. So much credit. Of course, I went to college, but I didn't go and get a degree. But I have so many credits. They're probably no good now. You know how things change. I probably have enough credits to towards a master's in psychology. I understand people don't fool me, and they do at the same time. I do identify with being an outsider, or the person who sees what others are missing. That has a lot to do with my main focus in music, which is I hear what everybody else hears. I hear all the greats, the people that everyone says are the greatest artists. I hear and see why they say that. And then I'll hear all this other amazing, very interesting music that is marginalized. I'll be thinking and I always think to myself, why can't people hear this? Well, partially I know the answer is because early on, I trained myself to listen more deeply. And I credit my parents and my older brother James for that. There's musicians on both sides of my family. But when we were small children, my parents made sure that we were exposed to classical music and music of the world and all kinds of genres. And so I was interested from an early age. Some of the very likely, these are just some examples, okay? Most likely some of the earliest stuff that was unusual or made me think outside the box, as it were, was probably soundtrack music and the early use of sound effects, the theremin. So I pulled this as an example. Forbidden Planet. Not necessarily this movie itself, but this is an example of an early movie that is an electronic music score. I do remember this movie, but mostly I remember the music. Lewis and B.B. Barron. There are many versions, reissues of this album. I know that this is an early one. Along those lines, it was stuff like this, stuff that you would hear, like from the BBC Radiophonics Workshop, Doctor Who. Of course, I'm an American, but I heard that stuff. But it was stuff like this. This is an example of an early library record, for me in my collection. Excuse me. Atmospheric Sounds and Effects from the BBC Radiophonic, Delia Derbyshire and David Vorhaus. Important names. Okay? And then, when I first heard, these are getting replaced. When I first heard, probably in this order, I'm going to put it in this order. When I was getting turned on to some interesting music, also through my dad, because he was ahead. He had a bunch of hippie friends, and he's a musician. So when I heard Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention, I heard them back in the 60s. This is what I first heard was either Absolutely Free or the other album. America Drinks, Plastic People, yes. Mother People, Brown Shoes Don't Make It On Here, which I found disturbing. This is signed by Bunk Gardner and Don Preston. I met them when they were in, and also Jimmy Carl Black. I met Jimmy Carl Black twice, actually. But when I heard this music, and is this the one that was the other early album, that Preston Love from Omaha is listed in the credits. I was just 13 or 14 when I first heard this music, but it immediately, that was like, what is this? Okay. And then another early one that everyone's heard, because there's examples that I can't remember that probably predate these regarding weird music. But when I first heard Pink Floyd, and I wish I still had I stumbled upon a 7-inch single of Candy in a Currant Bun, Arnold Lane, way back, and I don't know what happened to it. I didn't sell it. It was stolen. I had a Tower Records when I was a teenager. Before I ever owned a Pink Floyd album, I had the single, and it turned me on. And when I heard both their albums, this one in particular, though, A Saucer Full of Secrets, I loved it. And I couldn't wait to hear them. I recognized that opening chord and stuff, and when they would play it on the FM underground radio, turn that bitch up. And this also, ironic that Syd Barrett died on my birthday, the year that he died was on my birthday. And also this, Amagama. I liked even though it was kind of like, some of it was dull and like, what's going on here? That was the whole thing. It's like, what is going on here? It was instructive. It was interesting. So, and that sort of stuff kind of saved me from the rut of the blues that I was born somewhat in. Because my dad played with, he was, played the guitar, T-Bone Walker. He played with T-Bone Walker for a while. And then here locally, he played with everybody. from Tex-Mex to blues to heavy jazz. So I grew up with that music direct, and I was able to identify what I liked and what I didn't like. And frankly, some of that early blues stuff with Ray Charles as a child, I found it scary. It was so darkly sexual. I was just a child, and I was already dealing with abuse, including sex abuse. And that shit fucked me up. I didn't like it. So that's a part of my backstory. And reading all your comments brought to mind all these thoughts and remembrances. Thank you for being here with me, and thank you for accepting me. I would hope, if nothing else, that I can set an example of self-acceptance, because as you see, I'm a grizzly old man, my teeth have fallen out, I'm not the most handsomest thing, but I know I'm the shit. I know that I'm a good guy. I know I'm a good human being, flaws and all. I try not to hurt people with my dark side. I got a dark side. We all do. We all do. Makes me think of times, I've told the story before, but I remember the last time that I was bullied in the neighborhood in the 6th grade. I finally stood up to Keith Ross and his gang. They caught me on a street I didn't usually walk on, by myself. And they came over straight to me with their bullshit, and I just snapped. I stood up to him, scared the shit out of Keith Ross and his boys. I didn't raise a finger. It was with my voice and my face. It was basically, fuck you, I'm on to you, motherfucker. What the hell are you? Who you think you are? You don't fool me. And sure enough, come to find out years later, through working in the mental health system, I ended up working with a fair amount of people I grew up with, really saw what they were made of. Of course, I was kind of figuring it out anyway. So, yesterday was Peter Gabriel's birthday. I did make a big deal out of it, but I did play some Peter Gabriel. Pulled a 12-inch I hadn't played in a long time, Biko. And this is a different version than the one that's on the album. It's a live version. It also has a B-side that's only available here, I think. I have to look it up. No More Apartheid. I enjoyed this yesterday. I hate how when I get up in the morning and I go to the restroom, but right away, after a few minutes, I have to go again. It's strange. I was seeing some stuff on the sideline, and I pulled some stuff. Chrysalis. I forget what, well, it's probably the story is right here. I enjoy this because it's pop rock songs with a bit of eclecticism, some classical, but not real obviously so. I find the Sands album kind of interesting, kind of different. This is what I would always look for, is things that kind of are different. That came out, and this was next to it, so I played it and really enjoyed it. It's not the sort of stuff I play anymore, but this is the sort of stuff I still keep from my past, even though I don't listen to it much. Chrome, Red Exposure, and I had the great pleasure of, I have the poster right here, I forget what year it was, but it was a Friday, March 30th. I opened for Chrome. You know, Damon Edge has been dead for a while. Red vinyl reissue. But Helios Creed, I got to play a show opening for Helios Creed's Chrome. Got to hang out with him. Crazy. Some of the most interesting musicians are demented, cracked. Some are downright mentally ill. And Helios Creed's hands were huge, and I have decent hands. His hands were huge, and I could see that's partly how he gets the unique tone he does on the guitar. It's in the hands, people. It's in the hands. A couple more things that were played yesterday. I started playing this, Mojo. They were compared to Jefferson Airplane a lot. There's some arranged by Perry Botkin Jr. There's some more, info about this album I'm forgetting. I got to try to wrap this up because I don't want to do this in two parts, and my body is screaming at me to go. So I'll show you what else, because my taste is eclectic, and I ended up listening to all of side 2 of this. Really still like this. Scritti Politti, Provision. This is a good album. And Green Guard side, they started off punk and totally independent. I still have their first single that they hand-stamped and put together themselves. I still have a copy. But I love this. I think this is some almost perfect pop music from the 80s. And it stands to reason because they got Miles Davis on here. On another track, they got Roger Troutman on here. Okay, from Zappa. I got to work with Roger Troutman I was just working the monitors with my friend. But Zappa, when they played, Roger wanted to come through the audience up to the stage. So he got, the hired help, the nobodies, us, to put him up on our shoulders. And that was a trip because we almost made it to the stage. As we're going through the audience and it's parting, we come up to this person in a wheelchair. And we're heading and we have momentum. So we ended up falling over the person in the wheelchair. It was a weird moment because Roger just completely abandoned what he was trying to do, fell off our shoulders, immediately became concerned with the person in the wheelchair, getting their situation back together. Then we put him back up on our shoulders and went back to the stage. And I bonded from that. He was really nice backstage after the show. And that wasn't always the case. But that Scritti Politti is excellent. Another thing I played, thinking that maybe I was tired of this stuff, Sea and Cake from Chicago, Nassau. Saw these guys one time and got to hang out with them after the show. I like doing that. John McEntire is my kind of people. This is good stuff. It's its own sound. They take a lot from Can, but they don't sound like Can. And then just because I have it and I never play it, it says, well, I have it, so play it, even though I have all the records. Miles Davis's greatest hits. And this was enjoyable to listen to as a program. And I got a great pressing of this. It's really clean. He was beyond words what Miles Davis's artistry has done for the world beyond just music. And he was at our house when I was a kid and freaked me out. It was a time when things weren't going well and my dad was on heroin bad, and that's why Miles was to cop. He was in town and he needed to cop. It was scary. Much unlike the experience of when I met John Coltrane as a very small boy. I could feel, I'll say it now, I never said it like this before, but it's like I could feel John Coltrane's divinity. Okay? And then lastly, hadn't played this in a long time, Dave Liebman, look out for him. Dave Liebman should be more highly touted in jazz circles now than he is. He's not, I don't think he's remembered properly. He's a major voice. He's made a lot of records with Miles Davis and a lot of other people for good reason. And this album shows why. Not just the composition, but when people solo, everyone. He's got everyone, not everyone, but he's got the cats on here. Jeff Williams, Richie Byrock, John Abercrombie, Don Elias, Bet Alroy. Lookout Farm. Yeah, people, I love music. And it does enthuse me and enrich me. And it is a life-saving focus. I'm glad that I'm more focused on the arts than on other things like cars and sports or sex. Okay. It's the other thing about my nature. I know that I like people, but I also know from experience that I have to have my space, and I only want so much contact with people because you wear me out. I'm the sort of person that I'm a magnet. It's consistent to this day. Whenever I go out in public, strangers are drawn to me. It happens all the time. I can tell them a lot of stories, some interesting stories too. But to this day, it's a regular thing that happens. You're at the grocery store and somebody will just make a friendly comment. For me, it happens all the time, all the time. So again, thank you for responding. I'm gonna leave it right there. Take care. Have a good weekend.